There was this urban legend that I heard about that happened in Long Beach, California. The legend was that in one of these old amusement rides at the Pike, this ride is one of those, you get into a little cart, you circle around in kind of a railroad track, getting freaked out by figures, clowns, chopped off hands, things hanging from the ceiling, all with, you get smoke and purple lights and the whole deal. Crazy noises, everything. If you're like sensitive to noise and a bunch of things happening at once, this is what that was basically. And as you were going through there, a minute and a half later, 2 minutes, the ride would be over, but you would have passed an actual corpse along the way. Now, I looked into it, and it didn't take me long to find out that this was a real case. Many stories have been made on this subject, but I had never heard of it. This is the story of Elmer McCurdy, a man who ended up making money not for himself, but for others after he had died. And during his lifetime, he lived pretty much as a failed criminal. It's a sad story, but it's creepy because it makes you think that all these figures that you look at these wax museums and those field trips that you go to as a kid, maybe mannequins at a mall, might be real. Ready? My name is Edwin, and this is Paranormal Club. Elmer McCurdy was born in 1880, and he was born to this young woman. She was 17 years old, unmarried, and she was ashamed. She didn't want to have a kid that young, and there was a social stigma with it. So she pretty much gave it to what would be his aunts and uncles, like Elmer's aunt and uncle, to raise. Turns out that this is a very common thing. I've actually found out as I'm kind of researching into my family tree and some of people that I know and their family trees, to give people to family members to raise. Like, ask around, you might hear it was very common. But anyway, he was growing up, everything was fine, and then they finally give him the news, like, hey, you know what? We're not really your parents. You're adopted. And he's just like, he's not taking it very well. He ends up being rebellious as a teenager. He ends up drinking. He doesn't take it well at all. He kind of starts getting his life together as the years go on. And he decides to join the army. And now it's 1907. He's in there during the service. He leaves at 1910, 3 years later. But he learns this very specific skill, which is how to use nitroglycerin as an explosive. What can one do with that knowledge? He's going to find something. And it's to become a criminal. Steal money. This is how he's going to make a living. In 1911, he starts robbing banks. And it doesn't work very well. Like, he's not good at it at all. He actually, one of the robberies was from a train. And he convinced somebody to join him. He had heard that the Iron Mountain Missouri Pacific train was carrying $4,000 in it. Now, that's a lot of money back then. Turns out he used too much nitroglycerin, exploded the heck out of that safe. So much that he burned the bills. And the silver coins melted into the safe itself. Fortunately, he ended up leaving with anywhere from maybe around $400. Not too bad. Not good though. You missed out. You got 10%? Is it 10% of the total? What a miss. Anyway, now in September 1911, he now wants to steal from this bank. Like, he wants to go into the bank, steal from the vault, and take a bunch of money. This is a bank, right? He spends 2 hours hammering away at the brick of the wall of the bank. He makes it into the vault, sets the nitroglycerin, blows off the door of the vault, almost destroys the whole bank. But inside the safe that was inside was completely sealed shut. The money was not coming with him. Freaking out, he goes and grabs some loose change that was on some trays as they're counting money and stuff. It totaled around $150 in coins. Dang it. Right? You kind of feel bad for him. It's funny. He's a criminal. He's not supposed to steal money, but sometimes you kind of cheer on people like this. I don't know. I have this bad habit when I'm seeing police car chases. I don't know. Like I want them to stop. Obviously, I'm rooting for the police in those cases, but also like it's unsafe. Like it's not something I should watch, but it's like a natural thing for me to just be like, oh, what's gonna happen at the end? You kind of root for the car to escape every once in a while. I don't know. I don't know if you do that. I should probably stop watching police car chases. Anyway, now in October of 1911, this is quick. This is a month later. He finds out that this train is carrying $400,000 as a payment to the Osage Nation. So McCurdy grabs another partner. He's like, hey, we're going to do this. They go. Actually, it was several people. They were accomplices. And instead of stopping that train, they stop a passenger train. So they end up doing a typical robbery. All right, give me your stuff. People had no phones, and people didn't carry that much cash. They ended up leaving with $46, 2 things of whiskey, a revolver, a coat, and the conductor's watch. He was disappointing people left and right, and he ended up going to a ranch. He was like, I tried to convince all these people to do that. We didn't even take that much money. He grabs some whiskey, goes and hides out. And this is now in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And by this time, he was desperate. He was an alcoholic. He was not doing good. He was not doing good. He had tuberculosis, pneumonia. And on October 7th, 3 deputy sheriffs get a word where he is. And they decide to go after him. They start a shootout. Boom, boom, boom. Elmer's gone. He dies with a gunshot wound to the chest. That ended his career, his failed career as a criminal. But his new one was about to begin. Joseph Johnson was the man, the undertaker, who took Elmer's body. And he started, processing it and embalming it. But nobody came to pick him up. Like no family member ever said, hey, let's go give him burial. Nothing. Now, he didn't want to lose out on an opportunity to make money. So he was already embalmed. And with this other really interesting process, it was arsenic based. And the preservative was for long-term preservation. So he was like, you know what? He's going to look the same for a while. I'm going to make some money off of him. So he embalmed him standing up, dressed him up, and said, hey, whoever wants to see this corpse, like of a bandit, of a real life bandit. I think they branded him as, the bandit who wouldn't give up. 5 cents, a nickel. Come and see him. And people did. People went to see him. He made some money. Cool. It was cool. And it was really weird and bizarre that they were saying, to give your payment, put the nickel in his mouth. It's weird. It's a weird times to think about. Not long after that, the Undertaker was finally found his opportunity to sell. Now, the reason why he didn't want to just bury the body is because, hey, embalming stuff is expensive. He wants to get paid for it. And he always kind of waits for people to come by and pick him up and take him, to their proper burial site. This time it wasn't happening until these 2 men show up. And they're like, their names were James and Charles Patterson. They were like, hey, we are his brothers. And we want to bury the body. So give him to us. The guy was like, okay, well, pay up. And yeah, you can have him. So they did. They bought him. And the thing is that they weren't his brothers. They were actually carnival promoters. Like, those traveling carnivals that, they come here and see these freaks of nature. Kind of like that. They took him, and thus began Elmer's career as a performer, I guess. Who wouldn't move? So now these 2 guys have him, and they use him as another prop. And they call him the outlaw who would never be captured alive. And he just went around places being featured around there. I'm saying like places all around the U.S. He's just traveling around, and people paying to see him. It's an interesting investment. Then he ended up in 1922, ended up in the Museum of Crime. Now, the Museum of Crime, he ended up there because this guy, Louis Sani, acquired the body after the carnival defaulted on this loan. So, the carnivals were always trying to cut costs. So that's why they look all cheap. And they were trying to make money off of literally everything. Well, they had this $500 loan. The guy, they defaulted. So he was like, okay, well, now you need to give me some stuff. And now McCurdy's corpse was now exhibited in the Museum of Crime. Basically, there were these other wax figures of other people, other criminals. They were actual wax figures, except this one was real. That's where the confusion, I think, really started, because people were starting to believe that this was not really a corpse, but an actual wax figure. Sometimes we get people who are embalmers and people who deal with the dead here that listen to Paranormal Club. So here's a question, because this is what I found, but there were some questions about it. When people die and they were embalmed in these old processes, they say that their faces turned really shiny and they kind of ended up getting waxy. I want to know how true that is. And could you actually confuse a wax figure with one of these real corpses? Because this is what people were doing. In 1933, the body was acquired by a director, Dwayne Esper, to promote his movie Narcotic. It was placed under these lobbies, and they were calling him a dead dope friend, basically a fiend. Sorry, dead dope fiend. Basically saying, hey, if you do drugs, this is how you're gonna end up. So don't do it. People didn't know that this is a real corpse they're talking about. And as they're making fun of him, basically, not making fun of him, but using it as that because, you look pretty like dead. I don't know. That's my dead face. I mean, if you're watching, I don't know if you're listening, but it's stretched out, waxy skin. You can still kind of see the teeth. It was bizarre. I've seen some pictures. If you have the time and want to look at them, you'll find some pictures of Elmer. But anyway, Esper claimed that the body's shriveled, mummified skin was proof of drug abuse. From a film prop, he went to an actual fixture at an amusement park ride. Now, here's how they switched hands. In 1949, the previous owner of this thing that, the Museum of Crime, they placed the body in a Los Angeles warehouse for almost 20 years. And then in 1964, they actually loaned him out to this movie. I had never seen it. It's called She Freak. Maybe as an extra on there. 1968, Sonny's son sold the corpse to Spoonie Singh, the owner of the Hollywood Wax Museum. Now that's the place that really creeps me out. Imagine working there at night, having to dust all those figures. I don't know. That's where all these wax figures would reorient. Because this is what they call them, like when they talk about mannequins moving, they don't say the mannequin moved. They say the mannequin reoriented. It's actually how they describe subtle movements of mannequins. Anyway, the body during an exhibit in Mount Rushmore, it was kind of damaged from this windstorm. And it lost certain tips of the body, like the tips of the ears, fingers, toes. I mean, it was falling apart. But Singh, the owner of the Hollywood Wax Museum, was like, you know what? This thing's just not real enough. I don't want it. Imagine that, like a wax museum considering a real life corpse not real enough, but the wax figures, the wax figures are wax figures. The wax figures are. So he sold it to Ed Lears, part owner of the Pike, an amusement zone in Long Beach, California. Now, McCurdy's corpse was then hung from the gallows in this scene, and it was called Laugh in the Dark Funhouse Ride. Now, Laugh in the Dark, from what I found, and if we have people who know about this, please let me know about it. It wasn't just one thing. It was kind of like how we describe a clubhouse or how we describe a I don't know, a ride. Like it was a category of a thing. It wasn't the name of the place necessarily, but it had the name on there, Laugh in the Dark. Now, Laugh in the Dark, if you go to laughinthedark.com, actually, you're going to find some history of these old carts and you're going to see exactly what I mean. These were really creepy rides. The cart itself, the cart, like where you get in and go around the amusement thing, was patented. And the owners, the people who actually made this stuff work, were making a lot of money because they ended up using it as places where all these people wanted rides in their locations for entertainment purposes, right? You buy the thing once and you keep making money of it for people who want to get freaked out, go in. Sadly, it wasn't a very creepy thing. I mean, back then I guess people maybe they had a different bar for what's creepy. I don't know, but it wasn't a very eerie scene. It was just loud, chaotic, flashing lights, creepy things that you would go through, and then that's it. It would be over. But anyway, this website, laughinthedark.com, has a lot of details on it. Like too many details. I wonder like who was into this because it's an interesting part of history. So if you're into amusement park rides and stuff, that's something to look into. But anyway, it was hung from the gallows, and people were going past him every day, getting scared, not knowing that this was a real corpse that they were going to see. It was until December 8th, 1976. This kind of modern era, kind of. They're making the television series The $6 Million Man. And this episode is called Carnival of Spies. And in that episode, they use a set, for that episode to be the Pike area. Specifically that Laugh in the Dark, creepy amusement park. The film director, one of them, one of the camera people, they were like, I don't really like that prop. I'm going to move it a little bit. Goes up to it, tries to twist it into place a little bit, and the arm breaks off. Part of it does, anyway. And inside, you clearly see a human bone. Actual skin tissue and tissue from like the inside of a person. The police are called. The episode's put on hold for a little bit. And they find that this prop was a real life human corpse. I guess a real dead human corpse. It just flew like all over the news. This was a national news story. People all over the place were talking about the creepy corpse that was in this amusement park ride, and all the urban legends that developed after it were kind of saying, you know what, all along people were thinking that this was they were going through a real life corpse thing. But certain stories like this, you get the urban legend after the breakout of the story. So people had no idea that this was real until they broke off the arm. Now I wonder, what about the tips of the ears and toes and fingers? Like, you can't tell that there's bone in there? I guess you can't. I wouldn't be able to tell, I feel. I don't know. That's a tough one. But anyway, they started investigating everything, like an actual forensics team, and they took it to the Los Angeles coroner's office, and they found out that this was a real corpse and that he had died from a gunshot wound. They actually found the bullet inside of him. So they were able to use that bullet to kind of time him into when he had died. But really, the thing that really led to finding out who he was, because that was going to be another mission, right? That they opened up his mouth and they found a coin in there and a ticket, like an admit one kind of ticket. It's just a bizarre thing to think about. I got chills. I don't know why, but the body itself weighed like 50 pounds. Elmer was not a big guy, and he was kind of waxy on the outside. Obviously, the thing had been cleaned and painted over, and for a long time. And they found, along with it, the timing also helped. Like it was sorted out because of the embalming fluid that they ended up using, which was used for a certain period of time. So they were to time him because of that. And it also showed signs of tuberculosis, so they were able to time him because of that as well. The penny was from 1924, the one that they found in the mouth, and the ticket stubs were for Louis Sonny's Museum of Crime. So they were to trace him. Now they contacted Dan Sonny, who confirmed the body was likely McCurdy's. Obviously, he had the Museum of Crime, so He was familiar with crime. Now, this guy was obviously a failed criminal, but he made it to the museum. Congrats. It's like the Hall of Fame. And then forensic anthropologist Clyde Snow used a technique called superimposition, where they lay different radiographs of the skull, and they found that he matched the photograph of Elmer McCurdy, and it was marked as positive ID. So after they identified the man, they convinced the officials. Actually, it was a man called Fred Olds from the Indian Territory Posse of Oklahoma Westerns who convinced the authorities to let Elmer McCurdy be buried in his home state. And they said, they actually had a funeral procession April 22nd, 1977. And his body was taken to the Boot Hill section of Summit View Cemetery in Oklahoma. Now, the gravesite service was attended by 300 people. There's a lot of people. Imagine that. You pass away. Nobody knows. Nobody cares that you're dead. People have to, like, the guy starts charging and actually makes a thing out of you, like a prop out of you. Nobody's willing to go, but to his actual funeral, 300 people go. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. But obviously he was famous, right? And famous people or famous corpses get stolen. So what they did is they put him on, like they buried him and then put 2 feet of concrete over him so that they wouldn't get in there and take him. And that was that. Now, interesting because Elmer McCurdy became famous after he died. A sad story of a failed career as a criminal. Which, can you even call that a career? He actually tried plumbing and tried a couple of other things. He lost his job during I think it was an economic downturn in 1898. And he lost his job. He just couldn't get the hang of it. But at the root of it all was alcoholism. He loved to drink and his life was just falling apart. Could it have been that what affected him that much was that his parents weren't really his biological parents? And when he found out, would you have kept that secret from him if you knew that he was going to turn out that way? It reminds me a lot of other stories. Like there was one called La Pascualita, which is, I might just tell you a little bit about it now in case you're interested. It's a very famous story. The legend goes that this woman who owns this dress shop, like a bridal kind of shop, her daughter's about to be married. And just before she gets married, this spider bites her. She dies. Now, the mom is so heartbroken that she gets the daughter embalmed. And she looks so beautiful and realistic that she sets her up in the front window as a mannequin and puts like a really nice dress. And when people walk by it, they notice strange things about this mannequin. The hands are real. You can see, the marks, like the thumbprint or the fingerprint marks, whatever you call those things. The skin also, like you can see the palm lines and everything, the nails, the eyes, the eyelashes, the expression of this thing is so realistic that people start to think that inside of this figure is a real woman. There are several things that happen throughout the whole, I guess, while the story was at its peak. For example, this shaman walked up and tried to make a ritual to bring it back to life. People claim that when they were walking by, the eyes would follow them as they were walking. Some people were so freaked out they would cross the street and go away from it, like cross and then go back to that side of the street, because she was just that creepy. Now, something that I find really odd about this story of La Pascualita and that mannequin was that there was a 9-month period when she was taken away to supposedly display her at another place. And when she returned, she wasn't the same one. You can look at before and after pictures. Supposedly she went in a restoration process, like so that she could look the same. But people are like, this is not the same one. And some of the theories are that they found out that, in fact, this was a real person in there. And they just covered it up and brought another one that tried to make it look like the original one. Is it real? I don't know. Might be. I mean, thinking about this, stories start from somewhere. And this one about Elmer McCurdy was real. Do wax figures creep you out? What about mannequins? Now, I know I've mentioned a couple times that way back in the day, actually, it wasn't way back, it was in 2017, 2018, around there. I was working in this very small town in Ecuador. It's called Baños de Agua Santa. And the story that happened there is a whole other thing. But we go deep into that. Actually, I have a thing if you want to listen to it. I recorded my own story, so you can go check it out. But the owner was this French dude who was like half. He was from Chile with French parents, something like that, and he had this strange thing. I mean, French people are a little different, right, culturally than what we are, and it was different getting used to it, right? He was a business guy. He knew what he was doing, but he had this mannequin that he had up in the storage area, and he insisted on dressing him up like him and putting him in the restaurant of the hostel. I found this super weird, and I wasn't the only one. There were people that would go eat at the restaurant and they wouldn't go near the table where this mannequin was. It was weird. Plus, there's also some really creepy stories that happened in that restaurant about regarding the light bulbs. At one time, you couldn't find out what the issue was with these light bulbs. It turns out they had been unscrewed one by one and they wouldn't turn on. It was weird because nobody, even getting into the light bulb was a mission. Like, why would anybody even bother doing that? It made no sense. But it was eerie. And then at one point, they just put that mannequin away back into the storage area and it was forgotten. Was that thing related to any of the paranormal things that were happening at the time? It's possible, but they have no way of knowing. Are there any urban legends around your town that have turned real? That I found out that, hey, you know what, this actually happened? Like for me, for example, I always talk about Turnbull Canyon. Always talking about Turnbull Canyon because we used to go there a lot. As Turnbull Canyon is this area around the Whittier and City of Industry places, like in Southern California, and there were legends there about people doing satanic rituals, murders and stuff. And I ended up looking them up, and what do you know? Some of these things were real, and they have real newspaper records, like an airplane crashing there. Who would have? I don't know. I don't know who would have even. I don't know why this isn't more famous, or why these stories are still considered just urban legends and not actual facts and real stories. But they are. So if you know of any in your town, in your city, send them in. Even if you don't know if they're real, 100% real, I might be able to find something out. So let's put those researching chops to use here. But now it is time for some of the comments. I think we got some recent ones here. Let's go. Oh yeah, we don't have too many. Yes, we do. Here we go. Ashley Monique says, also from the previous episode, Life After Death, Scary True Listener Encounters. This is the story. We had two stories in there. And this one's about the story called Guardian Angels Everywhere. The story of how this little boy had a sixth sense and was seeing people who were no longer alive. Ashley Monique says, also, how did the lady in the church know Raiden's name? My great-great-grandma gave us $2 bills for Christmas as well. I still have her last one she gave me. I thought of this when I was reading it. In the story, this woman is standing in the back part of the church, and there is another woman who's taking care of a baby. Like, just taking care of him while the parents are resting. The mother is taking a break, basically, and they take him to church. And this, after the service, this old lady walks up to him, to this woman with the baby, and says, "Hey, your baby Raiden was so well behaved. I want to give this to him." Gives her a $2 bill. Later on, it's discovered that woman that gave the $2 bill was exactly the same woman in a photograph that actually really wanted to meet the baby, to meet her grandson. But yeah, how did she know the name Raiden? I'm hoping it was just one of those story edits, as in like maybe she didn't actually say, "Oh, Raiden was so well behaved." But I mean, that's what the thing said. I think in the actual recording, she might have said that, but still creepy, very very eerie. Francesca says, "I've been waiting for a new episode." Yes, and this was on the episode. I got a call about an actual demonic haunting, the Malibu case. Malabelle. The Malibu case is. We're still getting comments on the Malibu case. This one was a weird story. I'll tell you that. Richard basically experienced a demonic haunting after fostering this little girl, a 13-year-old girl, in his home. And it is believed that this little girl had some bizarre intentions, really evil intentions. Ben Dazzle says, I've had some crazy experiences, especially after having kids. One night, my 4-month-old son woke me up crying, and I saw my wife standing in the doorway, just staring at me. She slowly turned and walked away. The black silhouette shadow of her just passed. I was still angry. I didn't need to get out of bed. The bottle was next to me, and I fell fast asleep. Keep in mind, she was upset with me also. This is why she slept in the living room couch. Turns out this woman wasn't her. Tammy Double Peter says, I just binged Midnight Mass on Netflix. I liked it. You know, I watched a couple of episodes the very first part of it, and I stopped. I think I was traveling and Netflix wouldn't accept my credit card because the country I was in did not match the country where I got my card. Kind of a dumb business move, honestly. Like, that would be accepting credit cards left and right. Well, I guess you open up yourself to fraud and stuff, I guess. Anyway, I like that. It's by Stephen King. It's Midnight Mass. I think I'm gonna rewatch it. I like the setup of it that much. I didn't get too into it. Just like I'm the pretty thing that lives in the basement or something like that, or lives in the attic. That was another one that I didn't finish watching, but the mood of it was really cool. Eliana Garcia says, "Love this episode. These stories are so heartwarming." Thanks a lot. They were very heartwarming. And those are the stories. Those are the comments that we got on Spotify. Now let's go to YouTube. And then our comment on YouTube from Gabby. Gabby, thanks a lot for the comment here. It says, after you made that face, I burst out laughing. And she's talking about the face of of the scream. The story that V told us on the last episode of Paranormal Club. They are sleeping and one of them makes a face. And it was funny because it's like, oh yeah, there was a line there was like, something might have gotten into you. It's like, oh yeah, I think I was possessed for a minute. And I was like, no way. But yeah, Gabby, I like that part too. It was a very, very visual story. Very cool. Those are the comments. We only got one comment on our last video on YouTube. Still better now though. We're actually growing. Little arrows are green on YouTube, so we haven't actually promoted it. So we will see what happens with that. Now that Paranormal Club is becoming kind of this really special community kind of thing, where we go back and forth with comments, with stories, with a place where we can tell campfire style stories. We are going to be launching our Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook all together and the username's Paranormal Club Pod. There's no content on it yet. You'd be one of the first, literally. I think we have 0 followers, but you would be one of the first people to join. I'm going to make a formal announcement later on, but it's where we're going to keep telling stories. I know some of you wanted, on the poll that I released on Spotify, I asked what kind of stories you want to hear. And some of the results were campfire style stories, like campfire stories. Basically turn this thing into like, oh, all right, let's go and just tell you this creepy freaking story. There are some really creepy fiction stories and some stories that might be real, but aren't. Like I said, it doesn't make any sense. Stories that sound real, can be real, can happen to you, but did not happen. Kind of like a movie. So if you want to hear me tell you stories, like, as you know, I'm a writer. I tell stories on Scary Story Podcast, and I've been telling stories for years. Been writing. We have hundreds of stories now in our catalog on there. All those stories, those short stories were written by me. And They're creepy style, like creepy pasta style. They're also, some of them are very heartwarming kind of stories. Some of them are sad. Some of them are just creepy, like as in you're gonna think they're real. You're gonna be afraid of going to bed because a hand might reach out from under it. Kind of stories. Let me know you want to hear those. Those will be really fun for me to do. And if you have an idea on a story that you want to hear, like as in you want me to tell a story about something, and just want to tell me an idea or a certain feeling, like for example, stories based on Five Nights at Freddy's that I've already gotten, stories coming out this week, stories based on kind of Silent Hill 2, stories of creatures in the woods. I want a story on woman on the side of the road, stuff like that. All these things, even though they seem like just really popular, common stories, they trigger other ideas and they combine with other stories, other ideas that other people give to me, and we come up with this really nice story. Also, our live streaming part of this, like our lives, are going to be on YouTube. So you're going to be able to find them on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormal club pod. And you should be able to get to it there. You're going to see like when the next one is. Now, since the holidays are coming, it might be a little delayed, but either way, you're going to see the next one and when it's going to be posted. Mainly, we're just going to do hangouts and story ideas, story sessions, and also some creepy storytelling on there live, and also be responding to you on the spot. So let me know what you think of those ideas, and then I'll be back next week. Thank you very much for listening or watching. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon.